All right, so our assignment for this week is going to be a bouncing ball assignment. It's going to be the first assignment where we are using a rig, and the first time we're going to be not doing just object level animation, but that we will actually be, doing some deformations and things. So step one of this actually is because this is a rig I downloaded, and I don't want to have to keep going back to the website to get a fresh rig every time we do something. I'm actually going to just go to File, Save Scene As, and then I'm going to, let's see, what's the name of this assignment? Put my name on it. But we want to make sure I'm just using a completely separate file. And then that way, the file I have that I downloaded, from the website is still, there's nothing on it. There's no animation, there's no motion, there's nothing. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my settings because we do need to be remembering to do that. We need to make sure our undos are set correctly, and our animation, I need to make sure I have weighted tangents on. That's a big one. And default tangents to flat. That one, the tangents are going to change anyways, but weighted tangents especially is important because we tend to forget where that setting is. We don't use it as much. All right, so the other thing we need to do is we need to get this thing in the air. We need to start it off somewhere. I don't want it to start in the middle though. I want it to have its, first landing. I want it to basically like bounce across like this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to position it over here. This root control, sometimes called the global control, is just about orienting things. It's about just placing it somewhere. I'm not going to use it to place it up here because I think that would confuse matters. I want, for this control, this main control, I want 0, 0, 0 to be on the ground because then I can easily put it on the ground. Even if we're squashing and stretching it, we use this to squash and stretch. This down here doesn't move. So as long as this control is at 0 for the Y, I can easily make sure this is like on the ground. I'm going to zero this out back to where it was. No, not 3, 0. So I'm going to leave it down here, but I am going to use this to slide it. So I'm going to kind of place it over here, and then it'll start over here, and then it'll move forward. And what that will do is, as it's moving forward, 0 will be the beginning for this control. And then once it's out here, well, it's moved -16. It's moved in this direction, and that will allow me to basically know where it's going. All right, so we have it oriented. That's what we're talking about. The term orientation kind of refers to how you're setting it up. So it's oriented to where I want it to go, at least to start. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I believe it would be this view. Yes. I'm going to go to my side view because this is just going to be easier to get started off with. So for those of you that took the 2D class, you'll remember this is going to look exactly like that. And I'm going to raise it up however much I want it to start, right? And I'm going to put keys on this. Well, I'm going to need to key all 3 translates. Oh, hold on. So I didn't have the right control selected. I looked at my channel box and I saw the name and went, that's not right. We're not seeing the curves here, at least not on mine. So I need to go to show NURBS curves. There they are. This is what needs to get selected. Okay, cool. Oh, it turns out I did have the right one. I just got nervous because I couldn't see what was selected, and I don't like that. So we're going to bring this up here. All the translates. Key selected. I'm not going to deal with the rotates yet. I might eventually choose to have this thing kind of like rotate a little bit as it's going, but I don't have to plan for that right now. I can always like kind of deal with that later. Right now, I just want the motion, and I think it'll be easier for me to kind of deal with that from here. And this is a completely arbitrary amount of space I gave myself. I can, if I want, I can check and see what it looks like from 3D, which is pretty high up. You guys can have these bounces high or low as you want. We just want the physics to look correct. And then what I have to do is I have to start kind of plotting out where it's going to hit and then where it's going to come up again. And I'm going to make a note to myself that it was at 15. That's how high I raised it up. You can write the number down. It's just as long as I remember that that's how high it started. I'm going to go forward a completely arbitrary 10 frames. I want to be clear. I'm just spacing these 10 frames apart so I can see what it looks like. And I'm going to move this over. So I kind of want it to be traveling a decent ways. And then I can actually go here to the translate Y and type in 0. I don't have to like eyeball it. I could just type it in. Right click, key selected. I'm selecting all these things. I'm not really moving it along the translate X right now. I might get rid of that eventually, but for right now, I'm keying it. And then I can go here. Oh, actually, you know what? Well, we'll fix it later. I just thought of something that's going to make life a little bit easier. I moved forward on the timeline, and then I move up, but I move up less than 15. You can't go higher than 15. It can't bounce higher than it came from. So I move it up, and I tell myself we're going to drop it by about 4, something like that. We're going to move it forward. Right click, key selected. And we kind of go like that. Oh, nope. Oh, I actually got it to 0. Let me go here. Right. Oh, I never moved the time marker. If you don't move the time marker, you lose the animation you just did. Fortunately, we're just sliding things around a little bit. I knew I hadn't moved it because this was still red instead of the salmon color. It meant it was keyed. How could there be a key if I didn't put a key there yet? Because I didn't move the time marker. I'm going to move this up again. Over again. Right, like, okay. So we're just getting like a basic thing in here. Nope, I don't want the control. I would love to see, there it is, this selected here. And I rewind to the beginning and then I watch it. Yikes. That is not doing anything that we wanted to do, right? I'm just trying to like get it to do, just to get some keys in. And so I watch it, and what's wrong? Well, obviously the tangents are completely wrong. But also I feel like it's moving really far forward on this end. So I'm going to go to Windows, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. And my Graph Editor shows up over there because it's used to being, there we go, like this. We're going to move this over here so we can watch it. And we can see right away a few of the things that go wrong. One of them is there should really not be any keys on here. This is one thing I kind of didn't plan out correctly as I was going, is that I really should just do the up, down, up, down, up, down, and then do this all as one section. I can still do that. I can still grab these keys, not the front and back ones, and I can just hit delete, which will get rid of them. And then I can, oops, there we go. This is the Z, so this is the moving along this axis. I can grab these and I can say linear. And so it's going to travel sideways at a constant rate, which is what we want. The other thing we need to do, and this is what we talked about in class last time, is what you dealt with for your homework last week, is these are not the right keys. Specifically, these ones need to be set to linear as well. Now, this still isn't going to look very bouncy. We need to manually go in and change these things, but we're going to hold off on a second just to give ourselves a chance to see how things are going. So I rewind this to the beginning. Okay, starting to look like a bouncing ball. And it's funny how just so quickly I really have to go in here and change these keys or these tangents. It doesn't even, like, it's so hard to watch that timing and be like, yeah, that looks good. No, it doesn't. it's very difficult to see it without having those put in there. Then I need to break these, and I need to really make sure this is like bouncing, like legit bouncing. To know things like, is it taking too long? You know, do I have too much time between my keys? Is it going down too slowly? These are things I can find out later. But right now, I needed to fix those tangents before I'd even know the answers to those questions. I know why this feels weird to me. We don't see why this starts moving. So we don't, the way it comes into frame, we're just sort of like, why was it, launched? One of the things we can do to fix that is, instead of having this be linear, I can have it be linear at the front end and flat over here. And I can really stretch this out. And so what's going to happen, it's set to linear right now, but it's not listening. I have to do this. And so it's going to come flying in off screen kind of, and then its lateral motion will slow down. And that's going to be a little bit more natural. Okay, I did that too much. Way too much of an exaggeration. So we're going to move this back. We're going to, I need it to still be moving forward. I just need it to not be moving forward as much. Cool, cool, cool. The other thing I can do is I can take this key and move it much further, because I need the bounces, right? The bounces I need to have some more bounces, and so it's going to keep moving. So we have these working independently of each other. So I'm no longer going to be keying the translate Z. I'm only going to be keying the translate Y as I go forward, because I'm probably not going to do anything with X till later, and I'll just remember that I have to, key it before I do anything. So if I watch this now, it's going to eventually just start floating to the side. That's fine. Okay. Oh, nope, stop, stop, stop. So it's up in the air here. I come down here and I tell it to go back down to 0. Key selected. I go to 60 and wait, no, what was it at before? 8, okay. I go to 60. I need to know how high to make it, basically. Less than 8, so like 4. I've been going down by like a little bit less than 4, I think. You can see it's doing the lateral motion for me already. And we can kind of take a look at this. You can see how it gets mechanical again, because I need to like change the tangents. So we're gonna bring this up just a skosh. And I'm just rushing through it. I'm just like up, down, up, down, up, down. I'll fix it later. You can see that's the key for the Z direction. I come in here, I look at my translate Y. You can watch the graph get worse as it goes to the end. So we grab these bottom tangents. We hit linear. We go here. Oh no. Unfortunately, I think I have to do these kind of like one at a time. There we go. And I can kind of look at this here and see how steep a graph I have. And I notice that this should be a little bit higher. Let me see. So 1, 2, 3.5-ish. And then 1, 2, 3, almost 4-ish. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it gets a little bit less bouncy as it goes, which doesn't make any sense. So I'll probably need at least one more bounce there. I go in and I break the tangents, and I'm just doing this like sort of mechanically. I'm just like, I know that this tangent needs to be broken, and I need to line up the tangents over here. I'm not actually like considering what it's going to look like. I'm just getting it closer to what it needs to be, and I can finesse it once I get it looking like it, you know. Okay. I'm going to say show note. I'm going to turn off NURBS curves for a second. And I believe, actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that's selected. I'm going to hit Q on the keyboard to get rid of my manipulator. I'm going to turn off show NURBS curves. It is still selected. You can see it there. You can see it there. So I can still change it, but I don't have to like look at it. So I'm watching this and I'm looking at sort of how bouncy I've made it. And I'm thinking to myself, I want it to take more time. Now that I watch it, it's got the hover, and it's got the landing, but it's not, I don't know that it's quite got the timing that I want. Also, if you want to trick your brain into ignoring that fact that it's not like starting properly, you kind of start it directly off frame. Then it's like someone threw it or something. Yeah, it still feels a little let in. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab just the translate Y. And there are ways to grab, move. Oh, where is, which, is that my scale tool? Yes. All right, so I'm going to, sorry, I had to fix a glitch. Drag select these, edit transformation tools, scale keys tool. And that should, oh dear. Stand by. Let me see what I can do to get this to work. All right then, I discovered why it wasn't working. I was clicking the wrong button. So back to the beginning. I have a bunch of keys. I'd like to scale them, have them take more time. I drag select all of them. I hit R on my keyboard because that's going to bring up my scale tool, like this tool, except I'm not scaling a thing, I'm scaling the keys. And this part's a little weird. I'm going to middle mouse drag while holding shift. I think if you don't hold shift, it gets cranky. And you can see it kind of scales out from wherever you were. So if I start at the beginning, hold down shift and middle mouse drag, it will scale out my keys, keep all these arcs the same, keep all the tangents the same, but just simply take more time to get them. And then I can see what that's going to look like. Okay, a little bit too much, which is okay. But I'm like on the right track, kind of. So I'm gonna, nope, I keep forgetting. I gotta go from here. Do that, watch this. And I notice, and it might be because I'm recording my screen, I'm missing some frames. So I'm gonna go to my time marker settings, and instead of playback speed, I'm gonna say play every frame, max playback speed 24 frames a second. So what this does is if it slows down, I'll notice it's slowing down, but at least I'll see every frame. It's bothering me that I'm dropping frames. So you have two choices basically. If your computer is struggling to keep up with animation, you can either watch all the frames or you can watch it in real time and miss some of the frames. And I'm choosing to have it slow down rather than drop some frames. Or I could just be missing the animation. What has happened? So apparently all my keys just decided to like take a vacation. Oh, they're not locked into place. Okay. What's happening is this is one key or one frame, and then this is the next frame. So we're not seeing it on the ground. So when you scale keys, what can happen sometimes is they don't end up on actual frames. So what I can do is I can right click and I can say keys snap. Nope, hang on. All right, so I have all my keys here. I can hold down shift to select them all, right click auto snap keys. And what that'll do is the next time I scale like this, oh wait, I need to have the scale tool, there we go. It'll automatically, there we go. They should all of them land on a frame. Yes. So I will know, it's not perfectly scaling it, that means, but at least I'll see all the times it hits the ground. It won't be like skipping around anymore. There we go. You can see I ran out of lateral motion, so I have to change that as well. But, you know, I'm going to shrink it down a little bit more. I kind of went a little, oops, whoops. There we go. All right, I'm liking that a little bit better. I got to make sure I have this move, and I'm actually going to move tool, hitting W on the keyboard. I'm going to move it this way. I'm also going to have it so that it moves a little bit further. So if it's taking that much longer, I don't want to just stretch out the motion it was already doing. I want to give it a little bit more motion. Perfect. Another thing I would do to make this, you know, look a little bit more like I'm like something I would get used to, I'm going to go to my main control here, and I'm going to see what other, there we go. I'm changing it from basic to simple. So the default has that band around it, which means you can tell it's not rotating. And that to me is bugging me a little bit, because like it would probably be rotating, and that makes it feel really stiff. So I'm cheating and I'm getting rid of the band for right now so that I can just watch this other motion, and my eyes are going to be like, oh yeah, it must be rotating, because like my brain's just going to assume that. Yeah, that to me helps a lot. It's a little bit too hovery now. I could go in, whoops, control A, there we go. You know, I can go in and maybe make this even, well, first of all, I'm gonna get rid of these. Delete, I don't need you right now. I can make it even a little bit less, you know, just kidding, wrong key, there we go. Hovery, or I could just make these a little bit less broad. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I can also, you know, change them depending on, there we go. These were not centered anymore because of this, the way I scaled it. But you can make them a little bit less broad if you're thinking, oh, it's a little bit too hovery for how fast it's going. There are things, you know, once I change one thing, I have to change others, right? Like that's just kind of the name of the game. And you sort of go through like that, like you sort of build it up where you just throw down any keys and, you know, get it started. And then continue on from there. So I'm looking at this right now and I'm going, all right, it's got a bit of a float to it. I got to fix that, but it also just stops right here. And so I'm thinking it's a little bit more than 10 frames. So somewhere around here, I have to bring it up a little bit again, at least. Key selected. And then somewhere over here, I got to put it back down to 0. Key selected. Like I kind of want to like finish off this motion here. Hello, there we go. Linear. It unbroke this, so I got to fix that there. But I can hold down shift, drag this out, click this, click the, oh, it thinks it's broken. It's not. There we go. Make this a little bit sharper. Make this a little bit sharper if I break it. And I can also, something I would probably do for the last couple things is scale this in a little bit, because technically speaking, I think, you know, if you were to measure something, it would not slow down in its hopping, but like really it does. Like it looks like it's, so, or rather speed up, like it doesn't take as long to hop. Yeah, that's taking way too long. So these last couple ones we're gonna, make them a little bit more of hops, which does sometimes mean having to go in. Oh, this one definitely has to move, just like generally. There we go. We'll see how that does. Okay, getting better. That hop takes too long. So, I think it's this one. You know, there's a little bit of, instead of scaling it, I'm just going to move this, like hunch it over, because I don't want these to change. I just want this one to change. So scaling only works if everything that you select gets scaled. Otherwise, we have to be careful and just move stuff. And it literally is, oh, actually, I kind of even that out. I'm going to do that. Okay, getting better. I'm also going to remember for the first time in this video to save. Don't be like me. Please save very often. All right. But that's kind of how you lay this out and get started. We have our bounces that are vertical that are following those same rules that you were working with last week. We've got a lateral motion that is independent and that I'll probably have to expend out both, you know, in terms of time and in terms of space, because I would need to kind of end this animation with some rolling. And then the other thing I would do eventually is, if once I got this first part of the hop much nicer, if I got it better, then I would start dealing with the spin. So I would go back to this, I'll go back to this thing right here, and I would start to add in a little bit of a roll. And so at the beginning, I could say, first I gotta figure out which direction it's rolling in, X. I would do key selected, and then somewhere around here, I would tell it to rotate, you know, just, you know, not too much. I'm gonna have to kind of see what that looks like. I'm gonna select this and then turn off NURBS curves just so we can see it. And then I would roll it more deliberately once it landed. I might do that a little bit further. I can go out here and I can see, yep, there's the X. I rekey that. Let me just watch it. And yeah, somewhere around actually here is where I would start to rotate it more, because the way it bounces is different. So like the really big bounces, yeah, this little hop right here, I would actually place a key for the X, because I need the rest of this to stay the same. So you'll see the X is doing this, and then afterwards I need to have it controlled differently. I can also, it starts off with a little bit of a slow thing. I would have to consider my tangents for this as well. But I would start to add in a little bit of a roll. I could also, at the end, as it's rolling, and I'd have to, you know, figure out what I wanted to do, you know, I could have it roll off the line and roll back here, in which case I have to rotate it along multiple axes, so that gets tricky. But I wouldn't really do that until I really, really, really liked the rest of this, because there's just, and I'm still not there yet. I still want to look at my tangents. I still want to like edit things. You know, there's a lot going on there. The other option you could work with, instead of doing a roll, I wouldn't try to do both. Instead of having it, there we go, roll, we can bring back our NURBS curves. And then we can work with this control to do a squash and stretch. And so we can come in here. So this is where it lands, I believe. I can double check my graph editor. Oh, I don't have it selected. That looks about to be where it lands. And And I don't have it keyed anywhere yet. That's fine. I'm gonna have it squash real hard. Key that and work backwards. And go back a frame and have it stretch out. And then go back another couple frames and bring this back to 0. And so it's going to stretch out, and then we can't see it because it's not. There we go. There we go. And now when I do that, I do think to myself, I need a little bit more space in here. So I would go into my graph editor and I would go to this control, and I would make this slightly less insane, insanely steep. And I can do that because if I'm squashing and stretching it, that's the, hang on, I'm going to do this first. The squash and stretch is what adds to it. This tangent can't go past this key unless you want it to, like, you know, be a real mess. There we go. So I'm taking the edge off the hops a little bit, making them a little less steep. And so that means that this is much closer to the ground before it launches off. And I do also want to, like, go into here and stretch it out a little bit. Key selected, give it a couple more frames, and then bring it back to 0. And so the squash and stretch only really happens, like, when it bounces. So we go. Now, if you're doing the squash and stretch, you will see that's not pointing to the ground. And so you'd have to, you can't do the roll thing like I was doing earlier because you need to adjust its rotation. If you want this to be pointing towards the ground, let's see, this is where it hits the ground. So we tell this main one here, the rotate X is going to be keyed. And then we go back a couple frames and we make sure, yeah, so this is where this key is. We make sure this is rotated so that it points to the ground. So that as it comes down, see how it's pointing to the ground when it lands? And then we have to do the same thing over here. And we got to get rid of the curves if we want to, like, actually be able to see what is happening. There we go. And you can see how much more dynamic it makes it. So you can do the squash and stretch, or you can do it spinning and rolling. I'd recommend against doing both just because that's a lot to look at. It's a lot to be dealing with while we're also dealing with, you know, all of these various things going on here. There we go. That's a lot. They're at completely different scales from each other. You're going to have basically this for each one of these things going forward. Oh, wait, there's also, let me bring my controls back up. There we go. So it's going to have to rotate and then somehow rotate back so that you can do this again. And then there's your squash and stretch. So you can see that there's a lot of different things you're keeping track of. So having it spin around to look like it's spinning around and also dealing with the squash and stretch is going to be a little bit much. So I recommend one or the other. And then doing the basic moves first, then adding in all the special stuff and seeing how that adjusts it.